Good afternoon, everyone. Today's lecture is by Dr. Koil Shanbag, who will be presenting a paper presentation on proposed updated description of cerebral palsy. Dr. Koil has completed her Bachelor's of Physiotherapy and Master's of Physiotherapy in Pediatrics from SDM College of Physiotherapy. Before we start the session, I request everyone to kindly keep their mics on mute to avoid any disturbance and save your questions till the end. Over to you, Dr. Koil.
Thank you so much, Josiane, for the lovely introduction. Today's topic is proposed updated description of cerebral palsy. Disclaimer: this content is intended for educational purposes only. Clinical decisions should be based on individual assessment and professional judgment. The presenter is not liable for any outcomes resulting from the use of this information. So this paper was published on 11th of April 2025, very recent, in the Developmental Medicine and Child Neurology. And the authors of this paper are Bernard Den, Peter Rosenbaum, Lucinda Carr, Martin Go, John Coglan, and Noelum Beke. So most of these authors are working in a children's specialty hospital. One of the member is in the International Cerebral Palsy Society. One is also a member of Cerebral Palsy Center, Lagos, Nigeria. So this is their background. The abstract tells that cerebral palsy is a widely used descriptive label for a spectrum of motor impairments caused by non-progressive brain injury or malformation occurring during the early development. Advances in research have significantly refined our understanding of CP. Researchers across the globe, including low and middle income countries, have expanded our knowledge of clinical features. Shifting societal perceptions, individuals with lived experience have influenced how CP is understood and challenging ableist attitudes and promoting inclusive framework. Ableist means again the people who discriminate against the disabled people. So all this has really shifted our perception. If you see what we were a long time ago, I mean, maybe 5-10 years ago, as compared to now, people are more inclusive about the especially able people, and lots of things have changed. So additionally, increased recognition of the needs and experiences of adults with CP has highlighted the importance of further developing appropriate services. So the aim of this paper was to propose an updated description of cerebral palsy, because the current definition that was published in 2007 is no longer fully reflects today's scientific knowledge, clinical practice, and the experiences of people with CP. So, when we think about cerebral palsy, it is a broad range of motor impairments, and it is caused by a non progressive brain injury or malformation that happens during the early stages of development. Like many medical diagnoses, CP is not a singulate or a concrete entity. It is rather a construct and an evolving conceptual framework. So what was the need of this descriptive diagnosis? So it is so that it is a starting point in identifying specific underlying pathology or etiology, or it is also to allow clinicians to identify patterns of symptoms that help structure care and provide a basis for communication across medical, educational, and social domains. Therefore, CP, our understanding of this condition is constantly being refined and redefined by advances in research, diagnostic criteria, framework-oriented constructs like ICF, and the clinical experiences. So let me just brief you about how the history goes in the definition of CP. So the first one to identify and diagnose and give a description for cerebral palsy was William Littles. He was a pioneer in this, and the concept has remained a consistent one, yet evolving uh, all the time, like over the years. And it was, he had told about this description in 1860s. So since then, the cerebral palsy is still evolving, the definition, the description of it. After that, it was Sigmund Freud who expanded the understanding of CP by including fetal causes alongside the perinatal ones. In 1950s, it was Mayer Perlstein. He drew attention to the multifaceted nature of motor control impairments associated with the condition. Then came Ronnie McKeith and Paul Polanyi. Their work culminated in Martin Bax's definition in the 1960s, which focused on the core issue of movement and posture. They also introduced the concept of the immature brain, a term later revised to a developing brain. And as scientific advancements shifted under understanding of neurological development, the definition put forth in 1970s, 1990s, and 2000 highlighted that the heterogeneity of the clinical presentation of CP, the chronic nature of its course, associated non-motor features including cognitive, sensory, and social aspects, and evolving perspectives on disability. After that, we are now all this years been using the 2007 definition, which is a two-sentence definition, and since 2000 it has been used till now. So cerebral palsy describes a group of permanent disorders of the development of movement and posture, causing activity limitation. That are attributed to non-progressive disturbances that occurred in the developing fetal or infant brain. The motor disorders of cerebral palsy are often accompanied by disturbances of sensation, perception, cognition, communication, behavior, epilepsy, and by secondary musculoskeletal problems. So the authors of this iteration of the definition of CP hope that this definition would be directly useful in making useful to make stakeholders, including people with lived experiences, healthcare professionals, epidemiologists, and other scientists, service providers, and policymakers. So that's why they gave such a two-sentence big definition, which consisted of all the components of cerebral palsy. Okay, but later on came the problem in this 2007 definition. So over the past few years, the two authors, that is Bernard Dan and Peter Rosenberg, who were authors of the 2000 definition, were contacted by several groups to discuss the need for an update. They used to continuously get this need for update. With growing understanding of CP and a broader field of neurological conditions, the questions arise as to whether further revisions are necessary. So since 2007, there has been a progress in etiological understanding of CP, including insights from genetics and documentation of inflammatory, other biochemical and neurophysiological processes. There have been several important reports characterizing clinical features from many settings across the world. including from low and middle income countries, providing clearer insights into the clinical manifestation and raising awareness of CP related issues. So the previous definition mainly focused on movement, posture, and associated impairments. It did not adequately address lifelong care, the adult CPs, the participation of those with affected with CP, quality of life, environmental influence, individuality, genetics. This all was not included in the definition. So the authors felt that CP should not only be viewed as a motor disorder, but as a lifelong neurodevelopmental condition. So this additionally, the evolving societal and cultural perceptions of people with CP are also contributing to the shift in how the condition is understood and addressed, with individuals with lived experience gaining more agency over their condition. The shift is aligned with broader changes in the language and concepts surrounding disability, as well as growing awareness of the ableist attitudes. So hence the primary objective was to develop an updated description of cerebral palsy that reflects current scientific evidence while incorporating the voices of people with CP. Rather than experts deciding alone, the author wanted a collaborative international consensus. So when you come to the method of this paper, they try to include all the stakeholders involved in CP. So the stakeholders were first the patients, the individuals with cerebral palsy, then the parents, caregivers, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, pediatric neurologists, orthopedic surgeons, researchers, advocacy organizations, CP registries, international academies. They also included healthcare service providers, researchers, organizing funding research, then academic societies. All this was included. All these people were included in contributing to the new description of cerebral palsy. So they initiated the process with an online focus, coming to the methods of how it started. Also telling you that the representatives came from more than 60 countries, and this ensured that the description represented both science and lived experience, also the low and middle and high socioeconomic countries. So they initiated with the process with an online focus group discussion in July 2022, involving members of the International Cerebral Palsy Society to identify common themes and points of divergence. The society is a non-profit organization with members in more than 60 countries and 5 continents that aim to make sure that the voice of people with CP be heard whenever medical research, technological advances, or policy development that might affect them are being discussed. So the main body in this is International Cerebral Palsy Society. Okay. They asked this focus group whether they thought that the term cerebral palsy should be retained or not. This was the main question. There was a strong support for retaining the use of the term. Based on the conclusions of the focus group discussions, they were able to formulate clearer questions for the first email survey, which was conducted in April 2023, to broadly invite stakeholders to share their insights, flexibility. And this survey addressed the following 5 major questions. So the questions were: what aspects of 2007 definition of CP, if any, should be retained as written in an updated description? This was the first question. The second question was, what aspect of 2007 definition needs to be removed, if any, and for what reason? The third question was, what aspects of the 2000 definition needs to be changed, if any, and for what reason? The fourth question was, are there components of the concept of CP that are missing from the 2007 definition and need to be added? And the fifth question was, who benefits from a change in description and who might be harmed? So more or less, they covered most of the questions that can be related to the old definition of CP. So they subsequently organized a hybrid workshop also, and that was in person and online in May 2023. As a pre-symposium event before the annual meeting of the European Academy of Childhood Disability, it took place in Ljubljana, Slovenia, where these 5 questions were expanded through collaborative dialogues and synthesis of ideas. So everyone took part in this. On the basis of the obtained input, we drafted a first version of an updated description of CP and conducted a second email survey in February 2024 to gain stakeholders' viewpoints on each of the specific term, that is word and phrases, and in this description, in the description. So further modifications were made after the second email survey. So there were a lot of surveys, the first email, second email, and the primary aim of that paper was to present the proposed. The primary aim of the paper was to present the proposed update to the definition of CP as a preliminary description that integrates stakeholders' perspective at this stage of the process. So by framing it as a foundation for further discussion and refinement, the manuscript emphasizes the output itself rather than the detailed mapping and analysis conducted during the development. So this is a very different kind of a paper. It tells you in detail and it takes you through the process, right from 2002 to now, 2025, how they have nicely written up the entire explanation of the research. So what was the finding of this paper? So in this paper, after lots of questions being asked to the stakeholders, there were some aligned opinions and there were divergent opinions. In aligned opinions, most of the stakeholders agreed that CP should remain a clinical diagnosis. It should remain a descriptive diagnosis. It should be recognized as lifelong. The focus should be given more on activity and participation. It should include the lived experiences, meaning those people who are living with CP, and be relevant in both developed and developing countries. And using the 2007 definition as the starting point for updates. So that can be considered as a starting point and all this addition should be made. So many stakeholders supported the same thing. And there were some divergent opinions. The disagreements remained regarding the definition versus description. So some people said definition is better, a proper definition, whereas some said a description is better. So the stakeholders were divided on this opinion. So there was no agreement on whether the description should explicitly address measurable or include procedural elements for diagnosis and management, whether it should be measurement based or procedure based to diagnose. And the opinions varied also about the oldest age at which brain injury can lead to CP should be specified. Usually we always say it is to the infant brain, but some had this opinion that CP can be caused even in an adult at a later stage by due to brain injury. So that was another disagreement. Some stakeholders advocated including common co-occurring conditions like epilepsy, ID, to reflect the multi-dimensional nature of CP. Others cautioned against diluting the focus on motor impairments as the defining features. So some said everything should be included, all the clinical features like epilepsy and that also. But some said, let's focus more on the motor part. The role of subtypes in the description was contested. Some stakeholders highlighted the value of subtypes specificity for clinical and research purpose, while others worried this could complicate. And the inclusive language was debated. Some specific terms, example disorder, disability, elicited mixed reactions. Some took it as can be offensive, so there was some disagreement on that also. So CP is a construct that reflects a broad, multifaceted spectrum of experiences and challenges. It has always been that in the definition. It's a broader version, not like usual definitions that go on. Because the diagnosis, the condition itself is that involves a lot of involvement in different aspects of the body. So they came with this proposed updated description, and it's called as a description, mind you, not a definition. So it goes like this: cerebral palsy is an early onset, lifelong neurodevelopmental condition characterized by limitations in activity due to impaired development of movement and posture, manifesting as spasticity, dystonia, choreoathetosis, and or ataxia. It results from maldevelopment attributed to dysplasia of or injury to the fetal or infant brain that is not degenerative, although the manifestations may change with age. The phenotype of CP is complex and heterogeneous, with each person experiencing a unique presentation. In addition to motor dysfunctions, people with CP frequently encounter primary and secondary impairments across various areas of development and functioning, which can significantly impact their participation in daily life. So when we see about this description, we pay attention to the terms added, the phrases added, early onset. We'll come to that, how the annotation was made. Also, mind you that there is no hypotonia included in this. So it is only a hypertone that is included in the cerebral palsy description. So they came up with a different idea of annotation. So of a big description, they tried to divide it into various parts and give more information on that part. So there is a superscript letter that has been given after one particular word or phrase. So there are total 25 specific terms of the proposed updated description. So there are 25 letters, and all this are further discussed. So cerebral palsy is one, CP is one, early onset is one, lifelong is one. Okay. So let's understand each important term. Cerebral palsy, the term coined independently in 1880s by William Osler or Adolf Wellenberg and William Govers. The term is retained despite its age because it is widely recognized worldwide, used consistently in clinical practice, research, and services. Retaining the name ensures continuity and diagnosis and communication. Ongoing funding for research and support services also depends on this term, cerebral palsy. The description of CP continues to evolve with new scientific understanding. Although the word palsy is outdated, it remains part of several established medical terms. So, key points in this is CP is primarily a disorder of motor control, not muscle weakness. Then comes the second acronym, the second word CP, which is an acronym to cerebral palsy. Strong support for using the abbreviation CP was given by most of the stakeholders, recognized internationally, including in non-English speaking countries. So this term is included everywhere. It is similar to widely accepted medical acronyms like ADHD, MS, AIDS, COVID. So benefits of using CP were promotes consistent communication, strengthens advocacy efforts, facilitates research collaboration, and supports healthcare and societal awareness. Let's come to see the early onset. Symptoms begin early in the childhood. Then it is a lifelong disability. So CP never disappears. Children who outgrow the diagnosis were misdiagnosed. So if the child was diagnosed as CP, and then you see there's no, now he doesn't have CP, he's all fine, he's all, then that means that the child never had only CP. Adults continue to experience CP related issues. It is a lifelong term. So they have nicely explained the whole every word and phrase. So next comes neurodevelopmental. CP affects brain development rather than simply muscle movement. This aligns CP with other neurodevelopmental disorders. They have even divided condition of. Instead of the word disorder, this was one of the biggest changes made. It was the inclusion of the word condition. And because it is not stigmatizing, and it supports person first care. Okay, then comes limitation in activity. Instead of focusing on only muscle tone, the emphasis was now given to what activities can the individual perform, and they followed the ICF model, which stresses on the limitation of activity, or what the person with some disorders is able to do. Nowadays, disability is not just a term given. It depends on how much the person comes out in the society and works, and thereby you can say that the person cannot be called as disabled anymore. So due to impairment, the CP results from an impairment in body functions and structure, and explains the link between body impairment and activity limitation. This is again the ICF framework. So they have included ICF also. Uh, then development. Functional development is affected by the impairment. Impact on development is a core defining feature of CP. Movement and posture. CP primarily affects movement and posture. Motor difficulties arise from impaired sensory motor control. Then comes spasticity, dystonia, choreoathetosis, and ataxia. CP is classified by predominant motor types. These are the following 4 types. The spasticity, the dyskinesia. Dyskinetic includes dystonia and choreoathetosis. Then comes mixed, those who have both spasticity and dyskinetic component. And fourth comes the ataxic. Multiple motor disorders can coexist in one individual. They are further explaining what is spasticity. So spasticity is an increase in muscle stiffness or resistance due to upper motor neuron damage. Dystonia is involuntary muscle contraction causing abnormal postures and twitching movements. Choreoathetosis, involuntary jerky and writhing movements. Writhing are movements of the distal component and a circular kind of movement. Ataxia is poor coordination due to cerebellar dysfunction. The other associated motor features are hypotonia, muscle weakness, tremor, and impaired motor planning. Then comes attributed to. CP is a clinical diagnosis based on history and examination. The term attributed to recognizes that the exact cause may not always be fully understood. That is why the term attributed to. Dysplasia of or injury to. CP may result from brain dysplasia or brain injury. So brain dysplasia is abnormal brain development itself, right from even the fetal development, and brain injury is damage before, during, and after birth. Both conditions may occur together. Dysplasia is weakening of the cells, abnormality in the cell level itself. So fetal or infants, brain disruption occurs before, during, and shortly after birth. The first 2-3 years of life are critical period for motor development. Then came the word brain. CP results from disorders affecting the brain, which includes cerebrum, cerebellum, or brainstem. Includes disorders caused only by spinal cord, peripheral nerves, muscles, and joint. So that is excluded. If the spinal cord, peripheral nerves, and muscle joints are involved, it is a lower motor neuron disease. Cerebral palsy is an upper motor neuron disease. So only the brain and the main spinal cord, if it is affected, then only it is cerebral palsy. It's a non-degenerative. That means the brain is non-progressive. It is static. Whatever damage is caused, there will not be any increase in the amount of damage to the brain. The damage will remain like that, and over the years, the symptoms will be seen. So progressive neurological disease are not classified as CP. If it is progressive, it's not CP. So this is component that was there in the previous definition also. Manifestations may change with age. The brain injury remains static, but symptoms and functions can change over time. Changes occur due to growth, development, physical demands, and musculoskeletal adaptation. Then the phenotype. CP diagnosis is based on observable clinical features. There is no single definitive diagnostic test for CP. Then complex. CP is a complex condition with diverse physical, medical, developmental, and psychosocial challenges. May include pain, respiratory, gastrointestinal, skeletal, and mental health issues. It is heterogeneous. CP is highly variable in severity, symptoms, and functional abilities. Presentation is influenced by individual and environmental factors. And each person experiences a unique presentation. Every individual with CP has a unique combination of symptoms, abilities, and challenges. So care and management should be individualized. This is something that is added. All these phenotypes, complex, heterogeneous, each person experiencing a unique presence. These are all terms that are newly added. This was not there in the previous definition. Then there is primary impairments and secondary impairments that is included. Primary impairments resulting directly from brain injury, which are epilepsy, visual impairment, cognitive impairments. And secondary impairments are developed later because of the movement limitations. So when the child doesn't use a certain part of the body, it leads to these impairments called as secondary impairments, which are scoliosis, contractures, pain, osteoporosis, reduced fitness. So understanding this distinction helps clinicians plan preventive management. Across various areas of brain development and function, this was one phrase. So CP affects multiple domains beyond movement. And the common impairments associated are musculoskeletal function, sensation, feeding and swallowing, communication, cognition, mental health, sleep, pain, epilepsy. These are the considered part of CP and not comorbidities. This comes with CP. So individuals may also develop secondary complications like respiratory problems, scoliosis, cardiovascular disease, and type 2 diabetes. Then comes the participation in daily life. Activity limitations can lead to restricted participation in daily life, may affect self care, education, employment, social relationships, recreation, and community participation. Based on International Classification of Functioning (ICF) framework. So all this was the explanation in detail of the different words and phrases included in the description, the latest description of CP. Now they also thought of coming up with a plain language description, which is understood by a mass, which is understood by those who are not in the medical background. So this was to enhance the accessibility and understanding, and this simplified it is the same description, but it is a simplified version of the description given previously that we discussed now. And the aim was to make the concept more approachable for a broader audience, particularly those without technical expertise, while retaining the essence of the original definition. But it is not a substitute for the clinical description and should not be used in contexts requiring technical precision or as a basis for decision making. This is a very layman kind of explanation to the same description that is for technical, for research purposes, for clinical clinical practitioners, all of those people. This is for more for the parents, caregivers, to those who want to understand the definition. So this is a very good idea that they came up with. It's the same thing but in a simpler language. And it's called as a plain language description. People living with cerebral palsy have a complex physical disability that makes their muscles unusually stiff and affects their movements. Cerebral palsy is caused by early damage to the part of the brain which does not get worse in itself but whose consequences may become more severe over time. Each person with cerebral palsy is unique, and while all have some degree of physical disability, many face additional learning, communication, visual, or other challenges. With the right resources, therapies, and support from family, people with cerebral palsy can thrive and live fulfilling life. Very simple definition, very nice one. So if you see, this includes words like stiff. Why was stiff included rather than what we say tone in a medical term? It was chosen to reflect increased muscle tone, that is spasticity or dystonia, which the epidemiological studies suggest it is present in well over 90 to almost 100% of people with CP. So the word stiff was used. Coming to the second part, that only part of the brain is directly affected. Here, only part of the brain is directly affected. That was to tell that it's not the whole brain that is affected, it's only part of it, which is important to mention and an important information for non-specialists people. Then there was early damage, the phrase early damage that was used. That was which meant to capture anti, pre, or postnatal causes. Early refers to early in life, early in development. That's why the phrase early damage was used. They have opted not to use CP acronym. Why this was not used is because currently recognized by search engines, spam filters, and other automated systems as an acronym, CP is not only for cerebral palsy but also child pornography. So this coincidence leads to research searches for CP on websites, and which may really be an obstacle for those who are really interested in CP to access information. So much care was taken in developing this description, not to add CP in a plain language description because it can cause confusion. So it's a very nice paper. We really liked it. And the clinical significance is this updated description encourages clinicians to diagnose CP early, provide lifelong follow-up, focus on functional rather than impairment alone, improve multidisciplinary care, involve families in decision making, and promote participation and inclusion. What were the strengths of this paper? It was a global consensus. More than 60 countries were involved. It is a multidisciplinary, experts were involved, included people living with CP also. Modern evidence was taken into consideration and patient-centered approach was made. The limitations is the description is still preliminary, like there can be a lot of changes furthermore. Some controversial areas remain unresolved, like age cutoff is still unresolved, not included, how much age it can be included. Genetic disorders was also not included. Diagnostic criteria were not included, and terminology also. The authors for invite, so the further refinement can be made, and the authors are really very keen in inviting readers for further international feedback before adopting a final version. So that's it. Coming to the last slide, that is key take-home messages from this paper. CP is now viewed as a lifelong neurodevelopmental condition, not a childhood motor disorder. The updated description emphasizes activity, participation, and person-centered care. This is from the ICF framework. It recognizes the complex and heterogeneous nature of CP, including both motor and non-motor impairments. People with CP and their families played a central role in shaping this proposal, and the paper represents an evolving framework intended to guide future clinical practice, research, and policy. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Koyal, for that very insightful and very informative lecture. We are now open to questions.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Koyal, you did a very good job in your presentation. Very nice, very good paper. And a few things four main things I would like to highlight that this paper has definitely taught us is that they have one is restricted it only to the brain. Brain, that is your cerebrum, cerebellum, brainstem. They have not included the spinal column at all.
Yes. Yeah.
So that is very important for us to acknowledge. Then second, they have looked at a very important part, which is called the lifespan approach. All this while, when we were looking at CP, we used to only look more at childhood, at the most up to teenage. But we need to understand how this can impact children, even in adults, how it affects their participation, whether they get a job. So having a lifespan approach is excellent. And they have now looked at least as far as the types of CP are concerned, they have given it a better definition, very precise, being spastic, dyskinetic, mixed, and ataxic. Before, there was a lot of confusion. They would use sometimes dystonia, sometimes athetoids, sometimes chorea, sometimes hypotonia. So this also is very important. And yes, diagnosing CP, the cutoff age limit also is very important, which I think that is the only thing that they have not done because some articles say up till 1 year, some articles say up till 6 months. So if at all, I would say if it lacks anything, if they could define the cutoff for it, it would be better. But all in all, great presentation, good job.
Thank you, ma'am.
Does anyone have any more questions? With this, we conclude with the presentation. Thank you, Dr. Goyal.
Thank you.